I don't know why I keep doing this.
'Cause you're human. And you're not perfect, which is totally perfect and wonderfully human.
So, what's up, people, and welcome to part 7 discussion of Undone. And the title of this episode is The Wedding. And as the title mentions, it's about the wedding. But aside from that, you could tell that the series is coming near the end because there is a lot of things that are now happening, trying to tie up. And it may be because of that there was a little bit less of a depth that I could feel from this particular episode. It was extremely plot-driven rather than the character and depth-driven that I saw in the other episodes. And because of that, I had a little bit less of a emotional impact in this one compared to the ones that I saw before. And because of that, it may not have been my favorite episode. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to a different writer, if this is due to the fact that it's kind of getting to the end and it's almost feeling like it is being rushed. And I'm not sure if that's due to the writer or that's because the people, the staff have asked the writer to kind of, tie it up as quickly as possible. But this felt a little bit different. Not in a unique way, but just in a way that almost felt like, okay, it's going back to some of the things that you see in typical drama, where plot is more focused than the kind of the character uniqueness, the depth that you get. And things aren't as subtle as they are. They're kind of almost forced in this particular episode. But it wasn't a bad episode at all. It just that maybe the previous 6 were so amazing in terms of character depth that this one felt a little bit less in that regards. Now, this story focuses around the parallels between all the things that's going on in Alma's life. The relationship with the dad, the relationship with the boyfriend, the mystery of dad's death, trying to understand her powers, all of that, her relationship with the mom, and the wedding. And so all of this is trying to be crammed into one particular episode, and the writer did a pretty good job considering. But there is just almost for me a little bit too much in this episode. So yeah, this episode starts with the rehearsal for the wedding. And of course, Alma is the maid of honor. And because of that, she kind of gets burdened with a few things. But you go through a lot of interesting things. The typical preparation for the wedding thing. And you see a lot of the interactions going on with both Becca as well as a lot of the other friends or relatives or whoever they are that are the bridesmaids, of the group. And aside from that, during all this, then there's all this other interaction. The mom is still trying to get Alma to take her medicine. The mystery is continuing to go on. And that actually is a significant part of this episode where she finally gets a chance to meet with that one gentleman from that mysterious company who was funding the dad. And so she goes with and meets with him, which of course clashes in schedule with the wedding rehearsal. And so Alma's trying to juggle all this on her own. And here's one of the parts where I felt it was very rushed is, she goes and meets this gentleman, and all of a sudden she's putting on a facade, but it almost feels like, oh, they're getting along really well, and then they end up in the gentleman's hotel room, and it keeps on going, and he's blabbing away at all this stuff that I would think that the person would be a lot more reserved if they never met someone like Alma before, But he's blabbing away all this stuff, and then eventually he realizes that there's something very, fishy about Alma, and eventually she has to tell him that she was, the daughter of the father who got killed during that time, and of course he backs off at that point. But it felt very kind of forced. And part of it maybe is the writer got tasked to kind of tie up loose ends, and do it very quickly. So or I think it was a she, the writer is a lady, didn't have a chance to really flesh out a good relationship or a conversation between this gentleman who's from this mysterious company and Alma. She had to do it all at once. And because of that, it just didn't feel natural for me. And the other part which I felt was forced was the situation that happens right after that point, where Alma now has to go back to the wedding, and she's already significantly late for the photo shoot. And that gets into an argument. And the argument gets so escalated so quickly that Alma blurts out right in front of everybody that Becca had a, affair with the bartender at that one restaurant, which of course destroys the wedding, right? And so Alma is like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And she, of course, turns back time, and she successfully does so. And then she, of course, says the right thing, which, of course, moves the wedding along. And yeah, I understand that that needed to be done so that Alma can show that she's successfully able to control time now. But again, it almost felt forced in that they had to bring up that situation so that she needed to turn back time to correct things. Because of the fact that as much as it was an intense moment, and as much as Alma tends to like to blurt out a lot of things, she's not stupid. And she, as careless or as reckless as she is, I don't think she would go and just blurt out all of this stuff, And so it almost felt like we need to escalate quickly. So let's find something that Alma can cause a chaotic moment, and then she has to turn it back. And so let's just escalate this part really quickly. And it felt, again, kind of forced in that sort of situation. So all of this is feeling like it's trying to push as fast as possible to something that can be a resolution in the final episode of the series. But of course, there were some sentimental times where, Alma is having a one-to-one with Becca. And I found that was pretty nice. It was a fairly standard sort of conversation. And maybe that's one of the things I really liked about the previous episodes. It was very non-standard. What I mean by non-standard is it's almost non-scripted, right? I mean, people would say things that would be natural. This almost felt like it's kind of scripted. It's very nice, but it's something that you might read in a book rather than somebody would say in an open, impromptu conversation. But, yeah, okay, that's fine. It was a very sentimental moment, and so that's fine. And then, of course, there's still that relationship with the dad. And after the dad sees that Alma can control time, he suggests for Alma to go back to that moment to see, what happened during his death. And it gets to a point where she almost, I don't know if she's there in reality or if she's there virtually, but she almost gets killed in that sort of situation. And that brings an interesting point. One of them is that, does the dad really care about, Alma making sure that she adapts to the power before she risks herself in any of these traumatic moments? Or is he so focused on wanting to learn what happened and reverse that sometimes he doesn't care anymore? And that is an interesting point that you're starting to see. And the final thing that was interesting was Alma meets with these native, is it Central American? I'm not sure. The native people of that area that she came from as well, and watched the ritual dances of that culture. And of course, because of probably her powers, she becomes naturally attached to that dance. And later on, at the latter part, she just can't stop dancing that dance. And I won't go into too much more detail than that, but that brings up a very interesting point of how this power is being looked at, comparing Alma to Alma's dad. Because Alma's dad is a scientist, so all of this is just clinical, right? There is no feeling, it's just data for him. And it may be revelation and something that might be good to do research on, but from Alma's perspective, it's spiritual, it's personal for her. And because of that, she starts getting drawn into it, whereas the father never did, because of the fact that he never spiritually attached to it. He just logically thought about how to deduce it, right? And that is an interesting difference between the two characters. I presume that they're purposely doing it that way because of this particular scene with the dance. And so Alma is getting it, not because of the fact that she understands it, but because of the fact that she feels it. Whereas the dad is trying to think it, and maybe that's why he's having a hard time. But in any case, there is this interesting side of dad that's starting to come out, and it will be interesting to see, just how far he's willing to push Alma just to get to that point where, she can turn back time. Is he, at the point of being okay with sacrificing part of Alma's, good well-being, just so that he could reach his objective? In which case, what is the dad's objective? Anyway, that's about it for Undone episode 7. And yeah, these are just my personal views. I think a lot of people enjoyed this one a lot. It is probably the most plot-driven out of all 7. And so if you're interested in story and plot and things moving along, this might be a really good episode. I really enjoyed the characters' depth and watching all of this come out in a kind of a natural flow manner. And so although the plot moved quickly, I didn't get to feel the depth as much as I did in the other chapters. But in any case, I will be looking forward to chapter 8 or episode 8, because that is the closing episode to this series. And I want to find out, is everything going to get tied up in just one episode? Or is this just the first, season of a really long thing to come along? And I hope it's the latter, because I do like this series. I would like to see where this character Alma will be journeying once she starts, utilizing her powers better. And is this a journey with the dad, or is the dad's journey going to end in this season? Well, we'll find out, I guess, in the next episode. And so I hope you join me when I do upload the next episode. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have any comments, please post them in the comment section below. And I'll continue with Undone. I've gotten this far, I might as well bring up the last episode. And until then, Jaya, nice day, everyone.